Good morning, MacLaren. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. The weather today, lots of sunshine, high of 73 degrees. The sun rose this morning at 6:04 a.m. and will set at 7:49 p.m. A couple of notorious outlaw anniversaries to mark. Today, on this date, April 28th in the year 1789, Lieutenant William Bligh and 18 other sailors were put out on a boat from the main ship called the Bounty. So they were put out in a smaller boat and set adrift in the middle of the ocean. And the rebel crew, which had taken over the Bounty, set out having taken over the ship. So this episode was called The Mutiny on the Bounty. And the sailors, who are now criminals, they're mutineers. So they're on the run. And they went to Tahiti and then set sail for a tiny little island called Pitcairn Island. So this was in 1789, and the inhabitants today of Pitcairn Island are actually the descendants of these rebel sailors and their captives. So kind of wild. I think there are only 50 people living on the island today, and they are all descended from those sailors. Also, on this date, April 28th in the year 1881, another notorious outlaw, Billy the Kid, escaped from the Lincoln County Jail, kind of just down the road from us, in Mesilla, New Mexico. Today I wanted to read you a couple of poems by one of the greatest poets for children, A. Milne. He's most famous as the author of Winnie the Pooh, but he also just wrote great poems for children. So here are a couple. The first one is The King's Breakfast. The king asked the queen, and the queen asked the dairymaid, "Could we have some butter for the royal slice of bread?" The queen asked the dairymaid. The dairymaid said, "Certainly, I'll go and tell the cow now before she goes to bed." The dairymaid, she curtsied and went and told the Alderney, "Don't forget the butter for the royal slice of bread." The Alderney said sleepily, "You'd better tell his majesty that many people nowadays like marmalade instead." The dairymaid said, "Fancy," and went to her majesty. She curtsied to the queen, and she turned a little red. "Excuse me, your majesty, for taking of the liberty, but marmalade is tasty if it's very thickly spread." The queen said, "Oh," and went to his majesty. "Talking of the butter for the royal slice of bread, many people think that marmalade is nicer. Would you like to try a little marmalade instead?" The king said, "Bother," and then he said, "Oh, dearie me." The king sobbed, "Oh, dearie me," and went back to bed. "Nobody," he whimpered, "could call me a fussy man. I only want a little bit of butter for my bread." The queen said, "There, there," and went to the dairymaid. The dairymaid said, "There, there," and went to the shed. The cow said, "There, there, I didn't really mean it. Here's milk for his porringer and butter for his bread." The queen took the butter and brought it to his majesty. The king said, "Butter-ay," and bounced out of bed. "Nobody," he said, as he kissed her tenderly. "Nobody," he said, as he slid down the banisters. "Nobody, my darling, could call me a fussy man, but I do like a little bit of butter to my bread." This next one has a little bit of a strangeness at the end, where it sort of, you have to really see it on the page to quite understand. But you can see here there are a lot of initials and abbreviations and asterisks, and so I will do my best to make sense of those. This is called Disobedience. James, Morrison, Weatherby, George Dupree, took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. James said to his mother, "Mother," he said he, "you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me." James, Morrison's mother put on a golden gown. James, Morrison's mother drove to the end of the town. James, Morrison's mother said to herself, said she, "I can get right down to the end of the town and be back in time for tea." King John put up a notice, "Lost or stolen or strayed. James, Morrison's mother seems to have been mislaid. Last seen wandering vaguely, quite of her own accord. She tried to get down to the end of the town, 40 shillings reward." James Morrison, commonly known as Jim, told his other relations not to go blaming him. James said to his mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town without consulting me. James Morrison's mother hasn't been heard of since. King John said he was sorry, so did the Queen and Prince. King John, somebody told me, said to a man he knew, if people go down to the end of the town, well, what can anyone do? Now then, very softly, JJMMWG took great care of his though he was only 3. JJ said to his he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me. Okay, my friends, take heart. Keep tending to your victory gardens. Keep a pleasant schedule and a happy, healthy routine. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Get some fresh air and some good exercise. Be a helper to your family. Do not get in altercations. Do not altercate with your siblings. That will just make everyone sad. If it is your birthday today, April 28th, 2020, happy birthday to you. I hope you all have a day of kindness, friendliness, and peace, my friends. We are all in this together. We will see you next time.